When you hear the name Demi Moore, you don't just think of an actress. You think of an era when Hollywood stars felt larger than life, when a single movie could turn someone into a cultural phenomenon, and when Demi Moore seemed to be everywhere. She rose from an unstable childhood and an early start in entertainment to become one of the defining faces of 1980s and 90s Hollywood. It began with General Hospital, where she landed a role as Jackie Templeton, but St. Elmo's Fire was what pushed her into the spotlight, placing her alongside the young stars who would become known as the Brat Pack. Then came Ghost, and everything changed. Her performance opposite Patrick Swayze transformed her from a rising actress into a genuine movie star, and suddenly Demi Moore wasn't simply appearing in Hollywood's biggest films. She was helping define what a leading woman could look like in them. A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal, Disclosure, one major role after another, she became one of the industry's most bankable stars, and by the mid-1990s, she had reached a level of power few actresses had ever experienced, becoming the highest-paid female movie star at the time with her $12.5 million salary for striptease. But here's the thing about Demi Moore's story. The higher she climbed, the more complicated the spotlight became. Striptease and G.I. Jane became part of a period when the same Hollywood that had made her a superstar suddenly seemed eager to question her choices, her image, and even whether she belonged at the top. She had taken enormous risks, including shaving her head for G.I. Jane, but success was no longer guaranteed, and for a while it seemed as if the industry had moved on. Yet Demi Moore never really disappeared. She kept working, taking supporting roles, television projects, dramatic performances, and quieter opportunities, building a career that refused to fit neatly into one chapter. And then, decades after Ghost had made her famous, something unexpected happened. The woman Hollywood had once treated as a symbol of youth and beauty took on the substance. A brutally uncomfortable film about aging, vanity, identity, and the impossible pressure to remain desirable forever. The role was more than a comeback. It felt almost like a conversation with the entire image Hollywood had created around her. At 62, Moore gave one of the most fearless performances of her career, and suddenly audiences weren't looking at the former superstar wondering where she had been. They were watching an actress finally being recognized for what she could do. In 2025, she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress for The Substance, her first major acting award after decades in the business. And that moment carried something bigger than a trophy. For years, Moore had spoken about the doubts that came with being told she wasn't the kind of actress who would receive serious recognition, even recalling a producer who once dismissed her as a popcorn actress. But now, after all the fame, the criticism, the setbacks, and the years spent wondering whether Hollywood still had a place for her, she was standing on that stage being celebrated for exactly what she had been doing all along, taking risks, surviving change, and continuing to evolve. What makes Demi Moore's journey so compelling is that it isn't really a story about staying famous. It's about refusing to let fame decide when your story is over. The girl who started on daytime television became a movie star. The movie star became one of Hollywood's highest-paid actresses, and the actress who seemed to have everything eventually had to find her way through the parts of fame that nobody sees. Then, when the industry might have expected her to simply look back, she stepped forward again. Still working, still challenging expectations, still willing to be vulnerable, Demi Moore turned the thing Hollywood had used to define her, her age, her image, her past, into part of her greatest artistic comeback. Fame can make you unforgettable, but it cannot protect you from being forgotten. What matters is what you do when the spotlight changes. Demi Moore didn't just survive one of Hollywood's most unforgiving eras. She kept becoming someone new, and that, more than any single role, may be the legacy worth remembering.